Hi, my name's Zoe Rose. I am a user experience or UX designer and educator, currently working for Synergy Group in Canberra, and I am here to talk today about accessible virtual meetings. So we've got 10 minutes, and in that 10 minutes, we're going to do one story and 4 things to remember. This is a picture of a guy called Saqib Sheikh. In the picture, Saqib is holding a mobile phone. Saqib is completely blind. He is a developer and he's holding a phone because he is the lead developer and instigator behind an app called Seeing AI. It's a Microsoft app. It lets blind and visually impaired people perceive the world around them using their phones. It's actually pretty nifty. Now, a few years ago, I was talking to Saqib on Skype. Here is a picture of Saqib in the Skype frame. We were discussing disability matters, and Saqib said to me, what I say to people is you literally have the ability to, and then Skype went fuzzy, like, shh, feel me disabled or not. And I said, Saqib, sorry, could you repeat that? Did you just say people have the ability to make you feel disabled or not, or be disabled or not? And he sighed and he said, well, when I'm talking to the general public, I tend to say feel, but what I actually mean is be. You can make me be disabled or not. What does that mean from a blind man? What does a blind man mean by saying that? Well, in our culture, we tend to think of disability in a fairly specific way. We tend to think of it as being a flaw in the body. It's either fixable or it's not, but it's in the body. For disabled people, this is called the medical model, and it's not the only one. There's also the social model. Now, in the social model of disability, disability is actually the interaction between impairments in the body and barriers in the person's environment. This is a photo of a door that's halfway up a wall. There are no stairs, there's no ladder. Now, as a able-bodied or mostly able-bodied person, for me, if I look at that door halfway up a wall, I don't blame my legs for not being able to work vertically for the fact that I can't get into that building through the door. Similarly, somebody who is using a wheelchair doesn't blame their wheelchair when a step keeps them out of the building. There's nothing wrong with the wheelchair. The wheelchair's not a problem. The step, however, is creating a barrier, and that is the disabling factor. Now, this catches some people a little bit off guard, but it's actually a model with traction. The World Health Organization uses it. The United Nations uses it. It's widespread. So that's the first thing to remember. Disability as impairments interacting with barriers. Okay, what kind of barriers? Well, People with Disability Australia sets out 4 barriers. You can think of others: transport barriers, institutional barriers, lots of barriers, but the 4 that the A put forward are physical, communication, attitudinal, and social. If we think about those in the context of a virtual meeting, the physical, that's the workspace. Now, for most people, most of the time, that's going to be home. It's going to be at home. It's going to be home office. Communication, on the other hand, a lot of that is going to be controlled by technology, by the software that we choose to use when we set up these interactions. But attitudinal and social potential barriers, now both of those are explicitly about the culture. And this, by the way, is why I didn't start this talk by telling you about lots of cool little doodads, hacks, and additions that you can get to your communication software. It's because that's only one thing. That's just one barrier. And it's not necessarily even the most important one. This screen is divided in 2. The top half says what works for one impairment. The bottom half says might be very different from what works from another. This is to demonstrate that actually some requirements around accessibility, they can conflict. The top half of the screen is black text on a white background. For somebody with a visual impairment, that level of high contrast is really beneficial, but the bottom text is in a dark grey font on a beige background, and it's in Comic Sans. That lower level of contrast, and also the very easy to differentiate between letter forms provided by Comic Sans, now they're much better for people with dyslexia, who, by the way, make up about 6% of all your colleagues. So that's the thing to remember too. Technology is not the only barrier. This slide has a diagram on the left-hand side and words on the right. The words say solve for one, extend to many. Now the diagram has in it a series of little avatars. It's got 3 columns, 4 rows. The columns read permanent, temporary, and situational. The rows read touch, see, hear, and speak. This is a diagram used by Microsoft's Inclusive Design Toolkit to demonstrate how solving a complex problem, the kind of problem created by a permanent impairment, actually has a lot of knock-on effects for other people who you weren't necessarily even thinking of. So in the touch example, the person who has one arm has a permanent impairment in touch. Person who's broken their arm, who has their arm in a sling for a while, they have a temporary impairment in touch. And a new parent who's carrying a baby, well, they have a situational impairment in touch. Functionally, however, all these people are exactly the same. They all effectively have one arm. So if we can solve for the person who actually has one arm, we solve for the arm injury in the new parent as well. So that's thing to remember number 3. Solve for one, extend to many. With a caveat. Same diagram on this slide and the words, but solving a complex problem requires user research. If you want to understand somebody's problem in depth, you've got to ask them about it. Now, if you walk up to your colleague who you know is disabled and start asking them what they need in virtual meetings, now that might be very welcome. It might be something that they kind of hoped would happen at work one day. But on the other hand, it might be annoying. It might be invasive. It's requiring people to do extra work that they're not being paid for. And it's only going to put you in contact with people who have disclosed their disability. Now, it's got to be done, but how this is going to work in your organization is something I cannot advise you on, except to say, if you have access to a user researcher, this is the time to ask them. It's absolutely crucial though, because talking to people makes sure that we're actually solving problems they have as opposed to problems we think they have. If you remember that Skype conversation I had with Sakib, I was cheating before because I had a picture of him in the Skype frame. He didn't have his camera on at the time. So during that conversation, Sakib couldn't see me because he's blind. I couldn't see him because he didn't have a camera on. Was the lack of visual information any kind of barrier to us communicating in that environment? No. So any money or time that I had invested or he had invested in putting visual information into that exchange, I wouldn't have solved a real problem. It would have solved an assumed problem. And this is why we talk to people when we can. Of Australians with disabilities who report that they have disabilities, that's about 21.5% of Australians, changes over age range. But out of people who report a disability, those who say their disability is mainly physical, about 78.5%, mainly behavioural or mental, 21.5%. Now, on the basis of the numbers alone, you would assume, wouldn't you, that the right place to start targeting your limited budget and your limited focus is probably going to be on the physical side. I want to suggest that that's not so, because in a virtual meeting, the physical environment, which is probably the home office, that's going to be set by the disabled person. Whether it's working well or not is an external factor to the meeting itself. It's the communication, attitudinal, and social environment. Those are the ones that you as a meeting organizer or a meeting participant are going to be able to influence and shape. So thing to remember 4 is don't overlook mental impairments. I'm going to dig into this and demonstrate exactly what I mean. Some of you will be familiar with the idea of executive function. Executive function is the butler of your mind. It's managing the short-term memory, it's managing how you plan and start tasks, regulating emotions, regulating attention, prioritizing things. It's just keeping everything in order. Now, there are a range of mental disabilities that have an impact on executive function. 3 straight off the top of my head: dyslexia, autism, ADHD, very strong in executive function role. Temporary ones though, we hope they're temporary. Chemo will mess with your executive function. Pain, chronic pain that's been lasting for a month or horribly more. Anxiety will absolutely wreck your executive function. But we think about it situationally as well. Being tired, having a headache, having a hangover, exactly the same impact. And last but not least, let's not forget this, just being alive in a pandemic. That's going to knock out a lot of your executive function capacity. So that's basically all of us. An example from a meeting that I was in the other day, I have an autistic colleague. We were watching a video of a senior staff member explaining some stuff in detail verbally, and my colleague jumped into the chat going, "We need to run this thing through Otter. My autistic brain cannot follow what he's saying." What's Otter? It's a transcription service. Now, if you were watching an extended video of a senior member of staff explaining something, would you like captions? Almost certainly you would, because everybody does. So imagine we've made some accommodations to a meeting for one of our colleagues who has autism. We know what they need. Everyone with autism is different, and this person needs a written agenda, a clear goal. They need for everyone in the room to be introduced and have their role in the meeting, why they're there, explained at the start. These are not difficult things to do. They are not expensive things to do. And they are things that, if they were done, would actually improve the meeting for literally everybody there. So let's do our things to remember. Thing to remember 1, disability as impairments interacting with barriers. Thing to remember 2, technology is not the only barrier. Thing to remember 3, solve for 1, extend to many. And thing to remember 4, don't overlook mental impairments. Last but not least, let's remember where we started with Sakib. You literally have the ability to make me be disabled or not.